everyone. Welcome to 1.5 Degrees, the podcast where together we explore the science, solutions, and stories involved in the fight against climate change. I'm your host, Heidi Pan, speaking with the professionals behind the latest research, policies, culture, and innovations shaping our response to global environmental challenges. For today's episode, we are joined by impact entrepreneur Carlos Terol, who is the founder of Good Ripple, a global community of changemakers with over 2,200 people from 93 countries, to discuss connecting changemakers, finding balance, making an impact on social media, and more. Carlos has been a changemaker now for over 10 years and today is a top corporate sustainability voice on LinkedIn with over 22,000 followers. He is also the founder of Bagmaya and Terol Engineering and a Climate Fresque Pro facilitator. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carlos. It's truly an honor.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, Heidi. It's really, the honor is mine. I'm really excited about our chat today.
Yeah, no, me too. I've been following your work for, some time now on LinkedIn ever since I got the hang of it. But, for listeners, can you tell us more about what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Good Ripple. It's a platform to connect change makers. We started 1 year ago. We've already grown to 2,200 people from, I think I checked today, it's 94 countries now.
Oh, wow.
We've got nearly half of the world in there. And I really started because I wanted to bring change makers together, because at the moment, I find it quite difficult for people to find other change makers out there. How do you know that your neighbor is not trying to change the world like you are? We don't really know that much about people around us. And when we try to find these people, it takes a lot of effort and energy. And I'm really trying to change that and make it effortless and fast. So we have big long-term plans to make that happen. But at the moment, everything takes the shape of a community online. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for what's to come. And, I definitely resonate with that origin of, the struggle to find other change makers. So, personally really appreciative of your community. But, before founding Good Ripple, you focused on serving the world as a senior civil engineer. Did you expect to be doing what it is that you do today? And I guess what sparked that shift?
Yeah, really good question. So yeah, my background is in civil engineering, and I still do civil engineering today with my consultancy, Terol Engineering. And it's funny because I had the idea for Good Ripple nearly 9 years ago when I first came to the UK. Because I'm an engineer, I thought, well, I want to start creating positive impact. So I joined a charity called Engineers Without Borders UK, because it sounded like typical for engineers. So I started organizing events for them in Reading in the UK, where I used to live back then in 2015. And I was putting like so much energy and time and effort into creating these events. And I saw how lots of people started coming, started connecting, and people would bring their friends and other people. And I would start finding these change makers who were living in my street and in my neighborhood. And back then I started thinking, how many other people are out there that I don't know about, that maybe are just, in my neighborhood, in my town, that want to change the world. And I thought there should be a platform, a mobile app, just like Tinder, where you can just meet these people around you. So I started looking for the app and I couldn't find it. And I've been sort of figuring out the last 8 years how to maximize my positive impact. And I've been involved in many different charities. I went volunteering for 3 months to Nepal, and, always spending my spare time trying to make the world a better place somehow, researching, learning. And last year, I sat down for an hour reflecting about, if I could only do one thing for the rest of my life to make the world a better place, what would that be? And I came to the realization that Good Ripple is that thing, because it's no longer about my personal impact, but it's about empowering change makers to amplify their impact. And that's how I came up with that realization last year. And definitely, more than 8 years ago, I would have never, ever imagined myself doing this. When I graduated, I thought, I just get a job in civil engineering. I'll do that for the rest of my life. Just go up the ladder in the corporate world, and that's it. But yeah, things have changed a lot. I'm actually really grateful that they have changed. Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned like it was an idea you had 9 years ago. We started talking a little bit about the origin story, but I guess what led you to bring your idea to life finally in, I guess, like 2022?
I've been always trying to do so many different things and figuring out how can I maximize my positive impact in the world. I'm kind of a little bit obsessed about this idea. How can I maximize my impact?
Mm-hmm.
And so last year I sat down for an hour, just locked in a room with a piece of paper and started thinking, okay, so from everything that I could do in the future, what's that one thing that I would see myself doing in 50 years time and still be happy, enjoying it, and finding that's a meaningful thing to
Mm.
do, because we have a limited time in this life.
Right, right.
So we need to try to make something as meaningful as possible with the opportunities that we have. And that's how the realization that it's been 8 years, nobody has done this, so I'm gonna try to do it at least.
Mm.
And that was the tipping point, yeah, for me to start.
This is one of your many projects, like you've mentioned. I mean, for example, I'm all for discovering sustainable and ethical brands, and you founded Bagmaya. Please correct my pronunciation. Can you tell me more about this company, its origin, and its products?
Yes. So Bagmaya was the result of my volunteering experience in Nepal. I went there in 2018 with a UK program that is called the International Citizen Service. And I spent there 3 months in a rural village. We didn't do any tourism around Nepal other than a couple of days at the beginning and the end. That's it. We spent those 3 months in the village. I was working with water and sanitation projects, giving a lot of workshops to the community. And at the end of those 3 months, we were going to leave Nepal. And I felt a little bit sad, because it felt like everything just too temporary. Like, okay, we've come
Mm-hmm.
here 3 months and that's it. Now we forget
Right,
about
right.
Nepal. So myself and my business partner, who's from Nepal, we were thinking, what can we do to try and continue that positive impact in the communities here in the country? So we came across these products, these beautiful products, backpacks made with a material that I had actually never seen before in the UK or even Europe. This is back in 2018. I think now you see them a bit more.
Mm.
But back then there weren't that many. And I realized that it was hemp. So we were asking, they would say, yeah, this is hemp. And hemp in Nepal is an invasive species. It grows everywhere. We had lots of it around the village.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more research into it, I found that hemp is actually a super plant with superpowers for climate change, because
Mm-hmm.
it grows super fast. It doesn't need as much water. It recovers the soil. It cleans the soil, and it absorbs a lot of CO2 for the atmosphere. So it's a really, really good plant for climate. So we were thinking, okay, so if we can create these products with hemp, which has got amazing properties for sustainability, and then combine it with empowering the local communities here in Nepal to give them better livelihoods and upskill them, then that could be a win-win. So we started this company in 2018, and I started working on that company at the same time that I had a corporate role in engineering at that time. So I was doing it on my spare time, evenings and weekends, working on it. And yeah, we launched the brand in December 2019. So it's been now like 4 years. And yeah, it's not like a big company. We have really modest numbers, but we've grown decently over the last 4 years with like really little input, because I'm not putting that much energy into it these
Mm-hmm.
days. But yeah, I think we've created something quite unique with a good brand and a good story behind, to hopefully continue having that positive impact in Nepal, at the same time that helping people access better products in terms of sustainability.
Mm, that's super cool. I mean, yeah, you've mentioned that you've traveled to over 20 countries, and I'm sure it's grown that number. But I mean, how has that, I mean, I know for your life visiting Western Sahara was pretty significant. I mean, I guess just how has your travel in general influenced the work that you do?
Good question. I think I'm a totally different person thanks to all the travels that I've done in my life. I know these days we've got a little bit of a bad connotation about traveling because of CO2
Mm,
emissions and all of that, which is for a really good reason. But there's also an element of growth in traveling that if I hadn't been to these places, maybe I wouldn't be creating positive impact right now because I wouldn't have opened my mind to different cultures, different values. So, I think we need to look at things also in terms of net impact. And yeah, maybe traveling to some place got CO2 emissions associated, but if you use that experience to create something that brings about a lot more positive impact, then, I think the net impact there is positive, and we need to consider that as well. I'm not saying that, we should be flying every day, but, with moderation, finding a balance there, I think it can really help people. And I've seen that lots of people happening in a similar way. So yeah, so when I went to Western Sahara, that was really eye-opening for me because it was just a 30-minute flight from where I am in the Canary Islands. And it's just totally a different world out there. Seeing people living in poverty with really little opportunities in life made me realize that I had to do something in life to help people, to help the planet, because we have that responsibility, because we can really make change happen. And also then I started, so my heart really was about eradicating extreme poverty. That's where I all started. I've then been developing more into sustainability, climate change, refugees, inequalities. So I'm quite like, I really care about
It's
all
all
of these
related.
topics. I
Yeah.
cannot really, yeah, and I cannot really choose one. But it has helped me a lot. I also traveled to Kenya and visited one of the largest slums in Africa there. I traveled also to Manila in the Philippines and visited another of the largest slums in Asia. And, some people think that those may be like unethical things to do, doing like tourism, like poverty tourism. And I think it really depends on how you look at it and what your intentions are. I was there not to just, look at poverty and feel better myself, but I was there to experience, even if in a tiny little bit, like what their life could be like, seeing it with my eyes, like talking to people. And I use that as a catalyst for me to say, I want to do more to help these people and to help everyone in the world. So I think, if you take it with the right mindset, with the right intention, it can be like a really powerful, life-changing experience. And ultimately, exposing yourself to such a different culture, it's really enriching. If you go with an open mind and you learn from their culture, from their values, I've become such a different and better person thanks to learning from values of people all around the world. So yeah, I think it's one of the things that have shaped me more as a person, is all of those travels, not just to, go in an all-included hotel, but actually to be in the culture and absorb their values. To me, that's invaluable.
No, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, in that you mentioned like your life and balance. I mean, your work extends beyond Good Ripple, and I mean that alone involves wearing a lot of hats. You write newsletters, create resources, and host events. And I mean, and also you have to be very active on social media. But I mean, do you ever experience burnout or other challenges, and how do you navigate that and, achieve balance in your life?
Yeah, good question. I think I don't get to the point of burnout, mostly because I've been quite lucky in my life that I've got exposure to a lot of meditation since many years ago. And I've kept up that routine of every morning doing that meditation. I try to couple it with yoga and breath work. And that really helps me bring balance in the day. Even if the day after that goes crazy, but I have that balance point from the morning. It's like, okay, I've done my meditation, I've got my yoga, and it really helps me look at things differently during the day. So it's not about just relaxing for half an hour in the morning. It's about bringing that awareness and mindset throughout the day. So yes, I've got like so many projects, so many tasks, and I've got even so many other ideas of things that I want to do. And it can be overwhelming. I do get a bit overwhelmed with so many things that I want to do and not having enough time to do everything. But thanks to that routine that I keep and doing a lot of meditation in terms of understanding my mind and understanding how life works, in the sense that, we have limited time, so you cannot bring all of this future into 1 second present. That's why you get burnout and you get stressed. But it's like, okay, so I've got all of this in the future and I'll tackle it one thing at a time as I can, right? So I think that perspective really helps me. Overwhelmed, yes. But I just try to think, when I feel like that, I'm like, okay, so I can just do one thing at a time. I'll focus on this thing and then move on to something else. Obviously, some days this is more difficult to do because you have, priorities and deadlines and things. But overall, I think having that morning routine is what really keeps me, away from burnout and doing this meditation routine and really deeply understanding how my mind works and understanding that if I'm getting stressed, that's just me causing it, right? So I can actually tweak it and say, like, I'm not going to get stressed. Yeah, I've got to do all these things, but do the best I can, but without getting to that point of stress and burnout. Yeah.
So it's very much all in our heads, I guess, in that terms of, that work is there regardless of how we react to it. Yeah. And I definitely want to practice more meditation in my life, so I would appreciate advice with that. You recently posted a reflection on all that's happened and, said that it's all about passion, commitment, and mistakes, enjoying the process and being detached from results. Can you talk more about the experiences behind those words and, some of the, I guess, learning curves or challenges you've experienced in the last year?
Yeah. So I think that's something that I learned in Nepal, actually. I was reading the book, the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if you've heard about it. So it's like the Bible in Hinduism. And one of the key lessons I learned there was about becoming detached from the results. And initially I didn't get it because it's like, well, if I do this, it's because I want to get something, right? Otherwise, why would I do it? So, I start Good Ripple because I want to connect whatever people I want to get to this stage. But actually, when you detach yourself from those results, suddenly you get the best results because you are solely focused on the process. Regardless of whether you get there or not, you're just enjoying the process. And I think a lot of us tend to just, be like the trying to pursue this carrot, right, that we have in front of us all the time. And we get there and then suddenly you realize, well, I'm still not happy. I need to get something else. And then I need to get something else. So it's like we're always chasing that happiness or success or however we want to call it. And I think when we stop chasing stuff and just enjoying what we're doing right now, that's when the best results come, because it's when you're actually really happy, enjoying, joyful. And eventually, because you're doing your best at your best capacity, then the best results will come. But you don't care anymore whether they come or not. And even if they come, it's like, okay, this has happened. That's nice. But I'm not going to get, attached to having this award or having this success or whatever. It's like, okay, I'll just carry on doing what I'm enjoying doing. And I think finding meaning, knowing that you're doing something that's bigger than yourself, that helps a lot. Because suddenly it's like, you're not attached to that result of getting money or getting, a status of whatever, but it's like, I'm contributing to something bigger. I'm contributing to make the world a better place. And that just feels great, every single day. So I think to me, yes, having that sense of purpose every day and knowing that whatever you're doing is got a mission, is aligned with your values, then suddenly, you stop chasing stuff in the future and just focus on doing things right now the best that you can. I mean, it's always good, obviously, to have, goals and a mission and a vision, but without getting too obsessed about getting there, but just enjoying that process. I think to me that really helps.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I'm trying to practice that as well in my life. Yeah, and I mean, like in that, finding joy in what you do, I guess like what are some of your favorite parts of your work, and do you have any least favorite parts of your work?
Good question. Yes. One of the parts I love the most is having this chat with change makers like you and other people. Is like, to me, it's super inspiring. Like, if I look back now for 1 year, the amount of amazing people that I've met in this 1 year is like more than the people I've met in my entire life. It's like, I've met super amazing people in my life, but suddenly this year, the exposure, like growing my network and getting to meet people from all over the world, working in really amazing projects to make the world a better place, like that gives me a lot of daily motivation to carry on. That's like really, really inspiring to me, because I'm learning a lot from all of these people. So, it really feels amazing. Parts that I don't enjoy that much. So I don't enjoy that much when I'm doing something that maybe is not so purposeful itself. So maybe like admin work, I'm really not keen to do admin work. Sometimes, you need to do it. And it's like, oh, I'd rather do something a bit more meaningful than this admin work, right? But sometimes it's needed. So, so yeah, you just go through it. Keep it in mind that there's a bigger purpose to the whole picture. But that moment of doing the admin work, yes, I don't enjoy it that much. Or sometimes when you have like critical deadlines from clients, right? And it's like you have to be there and deliver. Sometimes those days, yeah, are not the most enjoyable either. But ultimately, you want to keep people happy as much as you can. So, I keep that in mind. It's like, I'm going to, make these people happy by trying to get this done on this day. So that helps as well. But yeah, what I really like is the interaction with people, like, they're having these chats and seeing that there's ripples effects, seeing that how other people are connecting with other people and getting to collaborate in projects, things like that. Those really give me a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, no, I definitely relate to that. And I mean, like this podcast in the last year, I think it's something about just taking initiative to meet other people. Yeah, I agree. It has a lot of good ripples. And do you have any advice for maintaining those meaningful impact connections that you've had in the past year and whatnot?
Question. And I think ultimately it comes down to time, right? Like you need to set aside some time to really nurture these relationships, because you see, like, a relationship, I mean, it depends. Like, you can have some friendships, right, that you don't talk for years and they're still like your best friend. It just feels that you never stop talking, right? But I think overall it's about making a proactive effort to be there for people, and again, like, not expecting anything in return, right? So just be there to like try to help people, coming from a generous point of view, and just like think of ways that you can help them, maybe connecting to people that you think might be worth connecting, so they can explore collaborations or things like that. So I'd say, like, always give more than what you get. So just being proactive, finding the time to nurture those relationships, whether it's just asking, hey, how are you? Or saying, hey, I found this resource that I think you'll find really useful. I'm sending it to you just in case. So people really value those things. And then also things like, if you can remember people's, birthdays and things like that, they actually appreciate it as well. And that there's somebody there that remembers them. So yeah, I think it's putting down that time, that effort. What I found helpful in the past is also making lists of, okay, these are the people that I really want to be, making a proactive effort to be helping them and to be there for them. It does actually help. It's sometimes also difficult to keep on track with everyone, right? Because it's we have only so much time. But I think it's one of those things that is really worthwhile doing, and making that time for them.
That's really great advice. Thank you for that. For those who want to start community movements like Good Ripple with social media platforms, be it LinkedIn or otherwise, do you have any advice or resources that you'd recommend for them?
I mean, for me, I can only talk from my experience, which is all based on LinkedIn. I chose LinkedIn because it's the only social media that I use. I don't use any of the other ones. So for me, LinkedIn has worked really well. I think there's something special in LinkedIn, and it's because most people have their name attached to their job and their employer. Then it seems that you have better content overall. Like, it's there's not so much hatred, maybe there's not so much hate speech and those things that maybe happen more in other platforms, where people can have more like fake profiles or just random profiles. Here it seems to be all a bit more productive and constructive in a way, more positive. And that's something that I quite liked about LinkedIn. In terms of platforms, we use nas.io, and I actually really recommend it to anyone who wants to start a community for a few reasons. We did a research of all the communities out there, platforms. Nas.io, they're super proactive to feedback because they're just starting. And, you tell them, oh, I would love to have these. And there's chances that in a few weeks or months, you actually have that if more people are demanding it. So they're super, super proactive to feedback. And also because one thing that fails in community is engagement, right? Engagement is really difficult. And even us, like we struggle. Like, I think every single community struggles with that. But one thing that I've seen many platforms failing is that they have their own platform messaging system. And that means people have to go to a different page, log into a different page to then have a chat in that platform. And that puts more friction and then puts people off from talking. So what NAS does is that they integrate whatever existing communication platform is out there. So whether that's WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook groups, Discord, Slack, you can integrate that with NAS.io so that you can find where's my community already hanging out? What are they talking right now? And then just let them stay there. You know, if it's like professionals, so probably Slack. If it's more like gamers or Web3 people, maybe it's more Discord. So, you know, you can find where your people are and just have them there. And that's what we've done. We've got Slack. Again, there's no one size fits all. So some people don't like Slack, and you can't have a perfect one, but at least you can find where most people in your community are going to be already hanging out and just use that. And also because their pricing model is pretty cool because it's free if your community is free. So other platforms out there, you have to pay a monthly fee even if you're not making any money. With NAS.io, they just take a percentage of whatever money you make. So if you have a free community like ours right now, we haven't paid anything at all in the last year for using the platform. So I think that's really cool. And my next advice, final one, is you know, test a lot and don't try to build something really fancy that then nobody uses. I've seen a few cases like that failing over the last year because people have a great idea, but they haven't tested if other people think it's also a great idea. That's why we started Good Ripple very quickly. You know, we just took something off the shelf, NAS.io, and we put the community out there in one day and start saying, okay, is this something people like? Like, do change makers want to come together and connect with each other? Because maybe it's just me, right? So I would recommend like testing very fast. So it's, you know, the concept of lean startup, using it in the community. Just put up something very easy for you to set up and very easy for people to join, and start testing and start talking to the initial members to understand what are their pains and how can you create more value to them. And then, you know, over time, then you can bring in more features and more complex stuff, but start very, very simple. Don't spend money and don't spend a lot of time. Just test with a minimum viable product and take it from there. Yeah.
That's really good advice. Thank you so much. And I mean, just on the line of speaking of resources, you know, it would be amiss of me to not express my appreciation for the incredible resources you've created yourself. I guess, like, can you highlight some of your favorites and what your process looks like from ideation to execution?
Yeah, and thank you for the kind words. So there's one we did recently that's got over 200 platforms to find impact jobs, whether it's in sustainability, social impact. So we've got a list of those. I think it's 220 job boards. We have the list on Notion, so people can just grab that list, make a duplicate in your own Notion, and then filter them and find the ones that you want to use to apply for jobs. We also have another one with over 70 sustainability and impact events around the world, so people can track them and see whether they want to go to some of these events. We also have another one with awards that people can put themselves forward, whether it's in social impact, sustainability again. So, you know, I think we need a lot more recognition to people who are changing the world. So we've put this list for people to apply to these awards and hopefully get some of them. In terms of ideation, for me, it's like, I think, okay, what can be very valuable for my community? What are people looking for? So, you know, that's how I came out. Okay, people want to attend events. People want to get recognition. People are looking for jobs. There's actually a lot of people out there in the community and outside the community as well, looking to make that transition into a green or an impact job, whether they're students or maybe people with 30 or 40 years of experience who want to make that transition. And they don't know where to start. So we've curated this list for them to make their life easier. So we're always thinking about how can we make their life easier? How can we save them time? how can we save them money as well? We're now looking at partnering with different organizations and people and provide discounts for people to get access to impact services. So it's all about starting with their people in mind. So it's not about what do I want to create, it's like what do they want to create. And then I get a lot of feedback from comments, from events, and people say, no, I would love to, for example, we're now finishing one with nearly, I think it's over 160 courses, undergraduates and master degrees for change makers. Because we've had a lot of people asking, what can I study? Like, I want to study more, but I don't know which courses to take, what master. So we've put this together. So a lot of it is community driven and hearing for feedback from people and creating these resources to help them save time and focus on what they really want to focus, which is creating impact and not just wasting time in doing all of this research. So that's really the basics of the process. Then it's just doing the research and putting it all together. But yeah, I think that ideation is the most important, to come up with those really good ideas that actually resonate with people.
In your life, do you have anyone in particular that inspired you? And I mean, what is the best advice that you've ever received?
Oh yes, I've got a lot of people who inspire me. Where to start?
Sorry.
So for example, Dan Sherrod-Smith, he's the of Mother Tree, and he's like one of the first people that I met through LinkedIn when I started last year, because we were both starting at a similar time. And it's been super inspiring knowing him. Like, we're just like friends now. You know, I took his services nearly a year ago for the Green Living service, and he and his team, like, they've totally changed my life. Like, they've given me so many advices on how to make my life more sustainable. Like, I've changed my banks, I've changed my pension, my investment, my company's banks. So all the money is now put into banks and funds that are actually creating positive impact rather than being invested in fossil fuels. And they've helped me also like change so many things at home to make it more energy efficient. And you know, it's been like a real journey, and it's one of those things that I'm super grateful for LinkedIn and having started this journey, because I've got these people who are really inspiring to me. There's also more recently Olivier Duarte, and he's the founder of Wildia. It's an app for people with eco-anxiety to help them transform it into action. And he's amazing. Like, we had so many chats, and you know, we sent like each other 10-minute audio messages on WhatsApp. A good advice that he's given me, because he's a little bit ahead of us in terms of they have an app already. We would love to create an app ourselves at some point. But they started the app very early on, because Oliver, he's not really technical in terms of background, just like me. He was actually telling me the other day, like, don't ever start building an app until you have a technical guy in your team, because it's really challenging. So I would love to share that with people. I think, again, I've seen that failure being done a few times, that somebody, they start creating an app from scratch, and maybe they don't have all the, you know, capabilities to do it. And it ends up being a little bit overwhelming, frustrating, that people are giving you feedback, things are not working, and you can't really make it all work. So this is an advice from Oliver, that is that, you know, start easy and simple, and get somebody who's got the technical background to really help you with that app or platform before starting to develop it, because it can get really, really overwhelming.
Yeah, it seems like a common pattern is just trying not to go too in over your head at first, and just start like with the minimum viable product. The MVP. But I mean, yeah. And I guess like we're winding down now, but I mean, if you could turn back time, butterfly effects aside, and tell your younger self something that you've learned from life so far, what would you say to them?
Good question. I think one thing that I would have loved to learn a lot earlier, as I mentioned before, was meditation. I've been doing that for a few years, but I think if I had learned that when I was a lot younger, I could be like, you know, a totally different person now, even more than the impact that's had already on me. And also learning about cognitive psychology.
Yeah.
It's one of those that, nobody had ever told me like how our mind works. Like I was never taught in school. I wasn't taught at home. And suddenly when I was 24 years old, I read this book by a Spanish psychologist, Rafael Santandreu. And it was really a tipping point for me, because suddenly it made me realize, okay, so this is how my mind works. And this is how, it's going to try to trick me all the time to get frustrated, annoyed, and sad, and this and that. But if you learn how that process works, you can suddenly start changing those thoughts, changing those emotions, and transform them into positive ones, into actionable ones, and use it as inspiration to take more action, more positive action. So if I go back, I would tell my younger self, learn to meditate and learn about cognitive psychology as early as possible, because I feel I've missed out a lot in life because of not knowing those before. And I think, if the sooner you start, the more progress you make in your life. So I think that's something that I would have loved to learn a lot earlier in my life.
Yeah, our minds are very self-inhibiting sometimes. So yeah, no, I definitely appreciate psychology as well for trying to figure out how to uh I don't want to say wrangle, but I guess like master my own mind. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, if we're gonna continue to hypothetically manipulate time, time skipping ahead 5, 10 years, what do you hope to be doing?
In 5 to 10 years. So I would love to be fully immersed into Good Ripple. I would love to have, our proper app now developed and rolled out in the entire world, because our dream is quite big. We don't want just to have a small community of people. We want to reach every change maker in the world. We want to map out every change maker in the world and get them the opportunity to connect with other change makers and give them the resources they need to amplify their impact. Whether you are a sustainability professional in Manhattan, in New York City, or an entrepreneur in the middle of a rural village in Africa. Like, we want to reach everyone, making a better place in this world. And that's what I would love to see myself in 5 to 10 years, making this impact, creating more ripples in the world, and inspiring a lot more people to create a better place in this planet. And I would love to be doing a lot more public speaking as well. That's something that I was doing a few years ago in my corporate role. And I used to give motivational presentations around the UK. But then with COVID and everything, I sort of stopped, and I'm just being like mostly online these days. But I want to go back to public speaking and being out there, because I think there's a really powerful emotion and a connection that happens when you're face to face with people, and hopefully with the aim to inspire more people to take more positive action. So I'm taking a lot of steps now to go back to that and build a lot of that next year. So yeah, I would love to be doing a lot more of that.
No, I'm excited to see that happen. And I mean, for listeners who also want to keep up with that work that you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, I think the best place is on LinkedIn. If you just search my name, Carlos Terol, I will be there. And yeah, send me a connection request. I'm always happy to connect with change makers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Carlos. I learned a lot from this conversation.
Well, no, thank you, Heidi. It's been a pleasure.